Molly McLaren. On the morning of June 29, 2017, a 23-year-old university student drove to her gym at the Dockside Outlet Shopping Centre in Chatham, Kent, England. She posted on social media about starting a study session with positive hashtags. She had no idea the man she had reported to police twice in the previous week had followed her inside, pretended to work out in the same room, and was carrying a knife he had purchased from Asda 2 days earlier. When Molly confronted him about his presence, her mother urgently messaged her to come home. At approximately 11 in the morning, as she sat in her Citroen C1 in the car park, he jumped into the passenger side and attacked her with the blade. He struck at least 75 times, targeting her chest, neck, and head. She beeped her horn and screamed for help. A bystander named Benjamin Morton tried to intervene. Despite prompt medical attention, Molly McLaren was pronounced gone at the scene. Stimson was arrested immediately, still covered in blood. Molly Joanne McLaren was born on May 26, 1994, in Cobham, Kent. She was a second-year undergraduate at the University of Kent, studying sport and exercise for health. She had attended Mayfield Grammar School in Gravesend and North Kent College in Dartford before university, where she achieved an extraordinarily rare 99% mark on one exam. She worked part-time as a barmaid at the Leather Bottle pub in Cobham and was a member of her university netball team. She had struggled with an eating disorder, but was recovering and blogged openly about mental health. Friends described her as someone who radiated positivity. Molly and Joshua Stimson matched on Tinder in approximately July 2016. They communicated through the app for several months before meeting face-to-face around October, taking the relationship slowly at first. They officially began dating in November and made it public on Facebook in December, having bonded over shared mental health struggles. Stimson, approximately 26 at the time and living in Woodham, Rochester, had a documented history of controlling behavior toward women. In 2013, he had harassed a woman named Alexandra Dale after a date in Stoke-on-Trent and was suspected of slashing her mother's car tires. But Staffordshire police failed to adequately investigate. 2 former partners later testified at trial about his coercive conduct. The relationship lasted roughly 7 months. Stimson became increasingly possessive. Molly described feeling she was constantly treading on eggshells. He faked mental health episodes to manipulate her into staying. Around March 2017, Molly first ended the relationship, but he pressured her into reconciling. On June 17th, 12 days before her passing, Molly ended things with Stimson for good during a night out in Maidstone. In the days that followed, he posted derogatory messages on Facebook falsely claiming she used substances, tagging her friends and family. Molly blocked him on all social media. Stimson enlisted a female Tinder acquaintance to secretly monitor Molly's Instagram and report her whereabouts. He appeared at a pub where Molly had posted about being terrifying her. Molly told friends, "I am actually scared of what he might do." Around June 22nd, Molly and her mother visited North Kent Police Station. An officer warned Stimson by phone to stop. When told they would not want Molly to come to the station again about him, Stimson chillingly replied, "Wouldn't we?" On June 27th, police spoke to him a second time. That same day, CCTV captured him purchasing a saboteur paring knife from Asda and a pickaxe from Homebase, establishing premeditation. Kent Police referred itself to the IPCC because Molly had reported Stimson before her passing. A domestic homicide review later found that Staffordshire Police's failure to investigate the 2013 allegations meant Stimson was never flagged in any police database. He claimed to suffer from bipolar disorder, but psychiatric evaluation at trial found only a narcissistic personality trait and rejected the defense entirely. At trial in Maidstone Crown Court, Stimson admitted to the act but denied the most serious charge, claiming diminished responsibility due to mental health. The jury rejected this defense entirely and on February 5, 2018, returned a unanimous guilty verdict in under 4 hours. Judge Adele Williams sentenced him the following day to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years, calling it a cruel, calculated, and cowardly act, and noting Stimson had shown no remorse. The judge warned he may never be released. He will not be eligible for parole until approximately January 2044, when he will be around 53 years old. No appeals have been publicly reported. After Molly's passing, her parents Doug and Joanna founded the Molly McLaren Foundation to support people with eating disorders. But while Stimson's actions were preceded by weeks of warnings that went unheeded, the next case unfolded in a single night, in a hotel room on the other side of the world. Grace Millane. On the evening of December 1st, 2018, a 22-year-old British backpacker walked into a bar in central Auckland, New Zealand, to meet a man she had matched with on Tinder. CCTV showed them bar hopping through the city center, visiting the Mexican cafe and Bluestone room. At 9:41 in the evening, they were captured on camera entering the City Life Hotel elevator, arm in arm. She followed him to his third-floor room. It was the last time Grace Millane was seen alive. The next day was her 22nd birthday. Her parents sent messages that went unanswered. Grace Emmy Rose Millane was born on December 2nd, 1996, in Wickford, Essex, England. She was a recent graduate of the University of Lincoln with a BA in Advertising and Marketing, the youngest of 3 children born to David and Gillian Millane. Her grandfather, Martin Millane, had been a former mayor of Thurrock. Grace was on a gap-year backpacking trip. She left England in October 2018, spent 6 weeks in South America, entered New Zealand on November 20th, and arrived in Auckland on November 30th, staying at the base backpackers hostel. She frequently updated social media to keep her family informed. Jesse Shane Kempson was 26 at the time, from the Wellington region. He had a history of alcohol-related arrests and driving offenses. An ex-partner had obtained a protection order against him before the events with Grace. After the trial, 2 additional proceedings revealed 9 further charges, including serious offenses against 2 other women, one of whom was a British tourist he had met on Tinder at an Auckland motel in April 2018, 8 months earlier. During the night of December 1st, Kempson strangled Grace by applying sustained manual pressure to her neck. Pathologist Dr. Simon Stables testified this required significant pressure for at least 4 to 5 minutes, ruling out any accidental explanation. After her passing, Kempson took 7 intimate photographs of her body. His phone records told the story of what he did next. Around 1:30 in the morning, he searched for Waitakere Ranges and hottest fire. He browsed explicit content. By 6 in the morning, the searches shifted to rigor mortis, extra-large bags, and carpet cleaner. On December 5th, 2 days after burying her, his phone showed searches for flesh-eating birds and are there vultures in New Zealand. On December 2nd, Grace's actual birthday, Kempson purchased a large suitcase from the warehouse and cleaning supplies, rented a carpet cleaning machine, and that afternoon went on another Tinder date with a different woman, while Grace's body remained in his apartment. Roughly 24 hours after Grace was last seen, CCTV captured Kempson wheeling a suitcase on a trolley out of the hotel. On December 3rd, he drove to the Waitakere Ranges west of Auckland, bought a red shovel from a hardware store, and buried Grace in a shallow grave off Scenic Drive. Grace's parents reported her missing on December 5th. By December 7th, her father David had flown from England to New Zealand and made an emotional public appeal that was broadcast across the country. Police declared a formal investigation on December 8th. Within hours, they identified Kempson through CCTV footage tracking Grace's movements from bar to hotel and brought him in for questioning. He initially lied, claiming they parted at 10 in the evening. When confronted with the hotel footage, he changed his story, admitting they went to his room, but claiming he fell asleep and found her gone in the morning. He was arrested and charged that same afternoon. Grace's body was found the following day in the Waitakere Ranges, inside the suitcase, buried in the shallow grave. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern publicly stated, "On behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologize. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't." Candlelight vigils were held across the country. The trial ran from November 4th through 22nd, 2019 in Auckland High Court. The prosecution presented 6 terabytes of CCTV footage. Kempson's search history, the photographs, and testimony from 3 other Tinder dates about his conduct. On November 22nd, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict after 5 hours. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. All appeals have been exhausted. Grace's father, David, was diagnosed with cancer after returning from the trial and passed in November 2020. Her mother, Gillian, and cousin Hannah O'Callaghan founded the charity Love Grace and were both appointed Officers of the Order of the British Empire in 2024. But while Kempson acted alone in a hotel room, the next case involved a suspect who left a trail of victims across multiple states and who might have gotten away with it all if not for a single database failure. Samantha Stewart. On the evening of July 17th, 2018, a woman's brother arrived at her home in Springfield Gardens, Queens, New York, after the family had been unable to reach her all day. Inside, he found her in the bedroom. She was unclothed, wrapped in a blanket on the floor, with injuries to her neck and head. The medical examiner ruled the cause as manual strangulation. The man she had gone on a Tinder date with the night before was already on a plane to California, using her credit card to buy the ticket. Samantha Stewart was 29 years old, a registered nurse at Long Island Jewish Medical Center in New Hyde Park, New York. She lived on 145th Road in Springfield Gardens. Her family described her as a beloved role model for her brothers and sister. Her father was Kenneth Stewart. Daniel Drayton was 27 at the time, originally from New Haven, Connecticut. He had spent much of his teenage years in foster care in Hamden, Connecticut. He had an extensive criminal history. In 2011, he had been sentenced to 8 years, suspended after 3, for attacking a former partner on Thanksgiving Day. In 2015, he was arrested for unlawful restraint of a woman. In January 2018, he was arrested for threatening a former roommate. Most critically, on June 30th, 2018, just 16 days before Stewart's passing, he was arrested in Nassau County for strangling ex-partner Zinnia Barney. He was released without bail on July 5th because the judge, prosecutor, and public defender were all unaware of his Connecticut record. His criminal history was sitting in a national database that none of the 3 parties in the courtroom thought to check. It was a catastrophic failure of interstate communication that would cost Samantha Stewart her life 11 days later. On July 16th, Drayton and Stewart went on a date, visiting a racetrack and sharing pizza at a Brooklyn restaurant. They returned to her home in Springfield Gardens. That evening, Drayton strangled Stewart inside her apartment. He stole her credit cards, an AAA card, drove her white Ford van to JFK Airport, and used her credit card to purchase a one-way plane ticket to California. Drayton traveled to the West Coast, where on July 22nd through 23rd, he allegedly strangled and assaulted a 28-year-old woman in North Hollywood over 2 days. On July 24th, the NYPD and New Jersey Fugitive Task Force tracked him to North Hollywood and arrested him while the California victim was still being held. In a jailhouse interview, Drayton confessed to strangling Stewart and claimed to have taken as many as 7 lives total, though police could not confirm the additional claims. DNA evidence also linked him to an assault on a 23-year-old woman in Brooklyn on June 17th. NYPD detectives connected Stewart's case to the Brooklyn incident through DNA, facial recognition software. The investigation revealed the full scope of Drayton's activity across multiple states, painting a picture of someone who used dating platforms to identify and reach potential victims. In California, Drayton was charged with attempted first-degree taking of life, forcible assault, and false imprisonment. On April 1st, 2022, he was extradited to New York and arraigned in Queens Supreme Court on an 18-count indictment, including second-degree charges, grand larceny, and identity theft, facing up to 25 years to life. As of the most recent reporting, no public verdict has been returned in the Queens case. Drayton remains held without bail. But while Drayton acted alone across state lines, the next case involved two people working together, planning the act before they even knew who the victim would be. Sydney Loof. On November 15, 2017, a 24-year-old store clerk in Lincoln, Nebraska, posted a Snapchat captioned, "Ready for my date," before heading out for a second Tinder date with a woman she had met the night before. Her phone last pinged in Wilbur, Nebraska, and was shut off at 8:32 in the evening. She never showed up for work the next day. Her dismembered remains were found scattered along rural gravel roads in Clay County nearly 3 weeks later. Some of her body parts and several organs, including her heart, were never recovered. Sydney Irene Loof was born on August 21, 1993, in Broken Bow, Nebraska. She grew up in Neligh, a small town in the northeastern part of the state, graduated from Neligh Oakdale High School in 2011, and had played basketball and golf before scoliosis prevented further sports. She suffered from anxiety and major depression and had a doctor's appointment for antidepressants just days before she vanished. She worked as a clerk at Menards, a home improvement chain in Lincoln, where she had built a life for herself. Her parents were George and Susie Loof. The perpetrators were Aubrey Clifton Trail, approximately 51 at the time, and Bailey Marie Boswell, approximately 23. Trail was a convicted con artist with an extensive criminal history, including armed robbery at age 17 in Tennessee. He endured severe childhood hardship, cycling through foster homes and juvenile facilities. He claimed to be a flying, mind-reading vampire and led what witnesses described as a cult-like group. Boswell grew up in Leon, Iowa. She had been a star high school athlete, offered a college basketball scholarship, but fell into substance issues after graduation. The prosecution claimed Boswell sought Trail through an online platform as a financial arrangement. The defense claimed she was someone Trail emotionally dominated. Boswell used a Tinder profile under the fake name Audrey. She matched with Sydney, and they went on a first date on November 14th at the basement apartment Boswell and Trail shared in Wilbur. Sydney went on a second date on November 15th. Multiple witnesses testified that Trail and Boswell had been planning to take someone's life before they ever met Loof. Former associates described the couple discussing gaining powers through such acts, fantasizing about producing recordings of it, and expressing desires to target women. On November 15th, while Sydney was still at work at Menards, Trail entered the store just before she left, purchasing cotton cord, cleaning chemicals, and lighters. Meanwhile, he and Boswell bought a foot-long hacksaw, wire snips, drop cloths, and a utility knife from Home Depot, plus large trash bags and gallons of bleach. At Trail's apartment, Sydney was restrained. Trail ended her life using an extension cord. Using the tools they had purchased, they dismembered her body into 14 pieces, placed the remains in black bags, and scattered them along rural roads, approximately 60 to 90 miles from Wilbur. Sydney's friend, Brooklyn McChrystal, knowing about the Tinder date, did something remarkable. She created her own Tinder account and began swiping through profiles in the area until she found the one listed as Audrey. She captured the phone number and handed it directly to police. It was the break that connected the case to Boswell and Trail. On November 28th, the couple made a bizarre Facebook live stream defending themselves and denying any involvement. 2 days later, they were arrested at a motel in Branson, Missouri, apparently planning to flee across the border to Mexico. Sydney's remains were found scattered along the rural roads on December 4th and 5th. Aubrey Trail was convicted in July 2019 of first-degree charges and conspiracy. During his trial, he shouted that Bailey was innocent and slashed his own throat with a razor blade in court. The wounds were superficial. A 3-judge panel sentenced him to the most severe penalty. The Nebraska Supreme Court affirmed in 2023. He remains on the row at Tecumseh State Correctional Institution. He has petitioned the state to set his date, but Nebraska currently cannot carry out the sentence because it does not possess the necessary materials. In May 2025, the court denied his latest motion. Bailey Boswell was convicted in 2020. At sentencing, 2 of 3 judges voted for the most severe option, but the 3rd dissented. Under Nebraska law, unanimity is required. She was sentenced to life without parole, narrowly avoiding becoming the first woman ever to receive that sentence in Nebraska. The Supreme Court unanimously upheld her conviction in May 2024. But while Trail and Boswell's case was built on overwhelming evidence, the next one divided an entire country, because the man at the center of it was found not guilty. Wariana Wright. On the night of August 7, 2014, a 26-year-old woman from New Zealand met a man she had matched with on Tinder at his 14th floor apartment in Surfers Paradise on the Gold Coast, Australia. It was their first and only meeting. By approximately 2:21 the following morning, she fell from the balcony to her passing 14 stories below. The man she was with ordered a pizza, called his lawyer, and then called his father. Wariana Tagpuno Wright was born in Bulacan Province, Philippines, and raised in Wellington, New Zealand. She worked in the credit card division at Kiwi Bank. Her mother, Merzabeth Tagpuno, was a deacon at the Pororua Seventh-day Adventist Church. She had a younger sister, Mareza. Wariana was visiting the Gold Coast on holiday to attend a friend's wedding. Gable Tosti, 28 at the time, was a carpet layer living at the Avalon Apartments in Surfers Paradise. He was self-described as a loner who, by 2012, bragged about sleeping with over 100 women on bodybuilding forums. He was, by his own admission, somewhat obsessed with recording everything. He had motion detection cameras in his home, call recording on his phone, and frequently left his phone running. At the time of his arrest, he was already facing charges for a dangerous driving incident in which he fled police at speeds reaching 200 kilometers per hour. Wright matched with Tosti on Tinder on approximately August 1st. They exchanged messages for several days before meeting on the evening of August 7th. That night, Wright and Tosti purchased beer and returned to his 14th floor apartment. Wright's blood alcohol was later found to be 3 times the legal limit. Tosti secretly recorded the entire encounter on his phone, a 199-minute audio recording that became the case's central evidence. The recording captured a night that deteriorated rapidly. Wright became severely intoxicated and agitated. By around 2:14 in the morning, Tosti told her she had worn out her welcome and needed to leave. Wright began throwing decorative rocks and struck him with a metal telescope clamp. Tosti restrained and pinned her, saying, "You are lucky I haven't chucked you off my balcony, you goddamn psycho little bitch." Wright's repeated cries of no were captured on the audio. Tosti then locked Wright on the balcony. At approximately 2:21, a faint scream was heard. Wright attempted to climb down from the 14th floor balcony to the floor below, lost her grip, and fell. Within minutes of the fall, Tosti called his lawyer. There was no answer. At 3:10 in the morning, he ordered a Domino's pizza. He ate it in the apartment, while Wright lay 14 stories below. At 3:23, he called his father. "I met up with a girl for a date tonight, and she started getting really aggressive. I forced her out on the balcony, and I think she might have jumped off." He did not call emergency services. He did not go downstairs to check on her. The trial took place in Brisbane Supreme Court in October 2016 before Justice John Byrne. The prosecution argued Tosti intimidated Wright so severely that she felt her only escape was to climb from the balcony. The defense argued Wright became irrationally agitated while heavily intoxicated, and Tosti locked her on the balcony simply to separate them. Tosti did not testify. His lawyer argued the recording itself was the best version of events. On October 20th, 2016, the jury of 6 men and 6 women returned a verdict of not guilty of both the most serious charge and the lesser charge after 4 days of deliberation. The verdict divided public opinion across Australia and New Zealand. Wright's family was devastated. The case remains one of the most debated outcomes in recent Australian legal history. Tosti changed his name to Eric Thomas by deed polls in 2017 and returned to Tinder under his new identity. He rejoined the app 5 years after Wright's passing. In 2022, security at the Star Gold Coast Hotel allegedly found him on top of a woman who claimed he had harmed her. He was not charged after police reviewed evidence. In 2025, he challenged a ban from the casino, claiming discrimination. His application was refused. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. But while the Tosti case played out over months of investigation and a full trial, the next one unfolded in the space of a single evening, between 2 people who had matched just 6 hours earlier. Aislinn Black. On the early morning hours of May 24th, 2020, a man called 911 from his apartment in Layton, Utah, a city 25 miles north of Salt Lake City. He told dispatchers he had just killed someone and that he had met her on Tinder. He then asked the responding officers to shoot and end him when they arrived. When police entered the apartment, they found Aislinn Black face down on the bedroom floor with multiple wounds. She was 25 years old. She had matched with the man on Tinder approximately 6 hours earlier. It was their very first date. They had never spoken before that evening. Aislinn Black was described by her family as an adventurous, tender, and loving free spirit. She loved Nirvana, vintage clothing, camping, and hiking. She had a passion for working with children with disabilities and dreamed of one day adopting a child with Down syndrome. She worked at Avenues Proper, where colleagues remembered her as kind and welcoming. Her family included her father, Sean Black, her mother, Jamie Buckaloo, and her sister, Avery Black. Ethan Robert Hunsaker was 24 at the time and lived near Reed Avenue in Layton. He had diagnosed mental health conditions, including major depressive disorder with psychotic features, generalized anxiety disorder, and severe alcohol use disorder, and was on prescribed psychiatric medications. Post-arrest evaluations revealed he had daily thoughts of harming himself and others, and had recently considered ways to carry out those thoughts against strangers. None of this was visible on any dating profile. Nothing flagged him to Aislinn or to anyone else who might have swiped right. This was the second dating app fatality in the Salt Lake City area within a year, following another high-profile case in 2019. On the evening of Saturday, May 23rd, Hunsaker picked Black up and they went to a local bar for drinks. The date was described by Hunsaker as normal, with no arguments. After the bar, they returned to his apartment, where they were together in his bedroom. Black fell asleep. In the early hours of May 24th, Hunsaker woke up next to her. He strangled her. When he realized she was still alive, he retrieved a pocket knife from the kitchen and used it repeatedly on her torso and back. He then watched her for approximately 10 minutes. At 3:19 in the morning, he made the 911 call. Black was pronounced gone at the scene. Hunsaker was charged with first-degree offenses. In June 2021, he entered a plea of guilty but mentally ill, not as part of a plea deal, but as a recognition of his diagnosed conditions. Judge David Connors found clear and convincing evidence of mental illness. On February 22, 2022, at a sentencing hearing attended by 19 members of Aislinn's family, Hunsaker was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, with a special order committing him first to the Utah State Hospital for up to 18 months for mental health stabilization before prison transfer. Ashlyn's family spoke at the hearing about who she was, the life she had planned, and the future that was taken from her. The hospital commitment would have expired around August 2023, after which he would have been transferred to Utah State Prison to serve the remainder of his sentence. He is believed to be currently incarcerated there. The Utah Board of Pardons and Parole will determine his total prison time. But while Hunsaker's case was driven by untreated mental illness, the next one was driven by something far more deliberate: organized hatred. Blaze Bernstein. On the night of January 2nd, 2018, a 19-year-old University of Pennsylvania sophomore was picked up from his parents' home in Lake Forest, California, by a former high school classmate. They drove to a shopping center parking lot and then to Borrego Park. The classmate returned home alone. The sophomore never did. A week later, a rainstorm exposed his remains in a shallow grave at the edge of the park. His name was Blaze Bernstein. Blaze was born on April 27, 1998. He grew up in Lake Forest in an upper-middle-class family. His father, Gideon, was an equity partner at Leisure Capital Management, and his mother, Jean Pepper, was a former lawyer. He graduated from the Orange County School of the Arts in Santa Ana, where he studied for 6 years. At Penn, he was the managing editor of the university's culinary magazine. Described as a passionate culinary aficionado, brilliant scientist, incredible chef and writer who wanted to attend medical school. He was openly gay and Jewish. Samuel Lincoln Woodward was 20 at the time, from Newport Beach. He had attended the same school as Bernstein, but his father pulled him out during junior year due to multiple reports of homophobic behavior toward gay students. After briefly attending California State University, Channel Islands, he dropped out. He became a member of Atomwaffen Division, a violent neo-Nazi organization that had been linked to multiple acts of extremist harm across the United States. He traveled to Texas for a 3-day gathering of extremists. Photos showed him performing a salute associated with the group. Investigators found on his phone the organization's insignia as his background. A document titled Sam's Diary of Hate, detailing plans for hostile interactions with gay men, messages to associates about luring gay men on dating apps, and a Snapchat post 2 weeks before the events featuring an illustrated blade with text. Texting is boring, but this is not. The combination of extremist ideology and deliberate targeting would later form the prosecution's case for a hate crime enhancement. Bernstein and Woodward had matched on Tinder approximately 6 months earlier. Bernstein told a friend he hoped to connect with his former schoolmate, calling the potential encounter legendary. On the night of January 2nd, they reconnected via Snapchat while Bernstein was home for winter break. Woodward picked Bernstein up around 11 in the evening. What happened at Borrego Park is disputed. Woodward testified that Bernstein touched him without consent and threatened to reveal private information about him, causing him to snap. Prosecutors argued Woodward deliberately lured Bernstein as part of his documented pattern of targeting gay men, motivated by anti-gay hatred. Woodward struck Bernstein 28 times, primarily in the face and neck, then dug a shallow grave with his bare hands and buried the body. When Bernstein failed to appear for a dentist appointment the next day, his parents found his glasses, wallet, and credit cards in his bedroom. They discovered messages from Woodward on Blaze's Snapchat and contacted him directly. Woodward feigned sympathy. "I want to find Blaze as much as you do." A massive community search followed. On January 9th and 10th, a rainstorm exposed the remains. A knife found in Woodward's bedroom contained Bernstein's blood. Blood matching both men was found on Woodward's car headliner, under his watch, and on his car visor. Woodward was arrested on January 12, 2018. The trial was delayed for years by competency hearings, the pandemic, and defense motions. Jury selection finally began in February 2024, with the trial commencing in April. Woodward took the stand and testified for 5 days, claiming self-defense and denying a hate motivation. He told the court that Bernstein had initiated unwanted contact and that he lost control in the moment. Prosecutors systematically dismantled this narrative. They presented his Atomwaffen ties, the diary documenting his pattern of targeting gay men, and evidence that he had discussed luring victims through dating platforms with fellow members of the extremist group. The digital evidence alone painted an unmistakable picture of premeditation and ideological hatred. On July 3, 2024, the jury found Woodward guilty of first-degree charges with a hate crime enhancement. On November 15, 2024, Judge Kimberly Menninger sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Woodward was not present in the courtroom, attributed to illness, though some reports suggest he refused to leave his cell. His mother, Jean Pepper, who had become an advocate for hate crime awareness in the years since her son's passing, addressed the court. She stated, "This was a hate crime. Samuel Woodward ended my son's life because my son was Jewish and gay." The case inspired the Blaze It Forward Kindness campaign and a 2020 episode titled The Last Text that aired in January 2025. But while Woodward's hatred was ideological, the next case came from a place far more personal, and the lengths the perpetrator went to conceal what he had done would shock an entire country. Francia Ruth Ibarra. On Saturday, December 3, 2016, a 26-year-old bilingual teacher in León, Guanajuato, Mexico, sent a WhatsApp message to her mother at approximately 1 in the afternoon, saying she would visit her boyfriend and then go to the movies with a friend. It was her last communication. She walked into her boyfriend's apartment building, signed the visitor's book, and was never seen leaving. When her family buried her weeks later, it was on what would have been her 26th birthday. The casket was a small box weighing just 2 to 3 kilos, containing only fragments. Francia Ruth Ibarra Ramirez was born on January 20th, 1991. She was a recent graduate working as a bilingual teacher and studying English at the Centro de Idiomas of the Universidad de Guanajuato. She played basketball and was described as fun-loving and close to her family. Her father, Arturo Ibarra Serrano, was a teacher and father of 4 daughters. Emmanuel Denali Valdez Bocanegra was 26, a former medical student at the Universidad de Guanajuato who dropped out after approximately 1 year. He was the son of Ricardo Valdez, an influential chemical engineering professor at the university. Acquaintances described him as strange, selective, and intelligent. His father reported he suffered from a personality disorder and was in psychiatric treatment, though the court ultimately rejected incompetence arguments. In August 2016, Francia downloaded Tinder and matched with Emmanuel. They communicated through the app, then progressed to messages, phone calls, and in-person meetings. Approximately 1 month later, they became a couple. But from the start, Emmanuel kept the relationship compartmentalized. He never wanted to meet Francia's family and always avoided her home. He refused invitations to family gatherings and became agitated when Francia suggested he come over. Her mother, suspicious of a boyfriend no one had ever met, once secretly followed her to see who the mysterious man was. Francia told her friends she was in love. She had no idea what he was capable of. Francia went to Emmanuel's apartment at Building 101, Lomas de San Vicente, on December 3rd. According to the prosecution, she remained there for several days. On approximately the night of December 6th, Emmanuel took Francia's life inside his apartment, using a sharp object. He then attempted to dissolve her remains using caustic soda, also known as sodium hydroxide, and muriatic acid. What was left was placed in black plastic bags and left on the building's rooftop. When Francia stopped answering calls, her family mobilized immediately. When they tried to file a missing person report, the prosecutor's office refused, citing a 72-hour waiting rule. The refusal forced Francia's father, Arturo, to take matters into his own hands. He conducted his own investigation, tracking Emmanuel's identity through social media, traveling to Emmanuel's father's location to confront the family directly. and personally visiting the apartment complex where security guards confirmed Francia had entered but was never seen leaving. It was Arturo's persistence, not the authorities, that broke the case open. On December 10th, authorities finally executed a search warrant and found human remains in black bags on the rooftop alongside containers of caustic soda and acid, plus Francia's clothing in the apartment. 6 kilos of remains were recovered. DNA confirmed they belonged to Francia. Emmanuel fled to the state of Mexico near Mexico City with his brother, who was found attempting to commit him to a psychiatric clinic. He was captured approximately December 12th through 14th and showed complete indifference upon arrest. The legal process was agonizingly slow. Emmanuel's defense team filed multiple constitutional appeals to delay proceedings, raised theories that Francia had taken her own life, and argued mental incompetence. Each motion pushed the trial further back. In February 2020, his defense resigned from the case, entirely just days before proceedings were set to begin. On April 24, 2020, more than 3 years after the events, a penal judge declared Emmanuel guilty of feminicide, with maximum culpability, and sentenced him to 60 years in prison, the maximum penalty under the Guanajuato Penal Code. His defense filed an appeal in May 2020, but no subsequent reporting has confirmed an overturn. Emmanuel is serving his sentence at the Cerezo de León, Guanajuato. The case became a landmark feminicide case in Mexico, cited during the March 8, 2020 women's protest marches. Francia's father, Arturo, became an activist against such crimes. One less case of impunity is gratifying. We want this evil to end. But while Emmanuel acted alone to conceal what he had done, the next case involved a coordinated trap set by 3 people who lured their victim through a dating app with the sole intention of taking what he had. Dushyant Sharma. On the evening of May 2, 2018, a project manager at a mining company in Jaipur, Rajasthan, India, left home in his father's Maruti Alto, telling his family he had a work matter to attend to. He drove to meet a woman he had been chatting with on Tinder for approximately 3 months. What he did not know was that she had 2 accomplices waiting in her apartment. He would not come home alive. Dushyant Sharma was approximately 27 years old, married to Bitu Sharma with a young son. His father, Rameshwar Prasad Sharma, was an accountant at a local cooperative. Dushyant was his family's last surviving son. The first had passed as a young child, the second in a motorbike accident years earlier. He used Tinder under the fake name Vivan Kohli, posing as a wealthy businessman from Delhi despite having a modest income. Both he and the woman he was chatting with were deceiving each other. Priya Seth was 27, the primary accused, originally from Pali district, Rajasthan. She came from an educated family. Her grandfather had been a principal, her father a lecturer, and her mother a teacher. But after being cut off financially, she turned to criminal activity. She had been arrested 3 times previously for attempted robbery, blackmail, and running scams. She claimed to have conned 1,000 men. Dikshant Kamra was a model and producer from Mumbai who had moved back to Jaipur after accruing debts of approximately 25 lakh rupees, roughly $30,000. He was Priya's live-in partner and would be the one to carry out the act. Lakshya Walia was a friend of Kamra's who assisted in subduing the victim. In February 2018, Priya matched with Dushyant on Tinder. They chatted for approximately 3 months and met 4 or 5 times at restaurants. Both were running their own deception. He posed as wealthy, she planned extortion. On the evening of May 2nd, Dushyant drove to meet Priya, who directed him to her apartment where Kamra and Walia were waiting in ambush. They restrained him, placed a bag over his head, and beat him. Upon checking his identification, they discovered he was not the wealthy businessman he claimed to be, just a local middle-class man with a modest salary. The discovery enraged them. They beat him more severely. On the morning of May 3rd, they forced Dushyant to call his father and beg for 10 lakh rupees. approximately 12,000 US dollars. Rameshwar, hearing the desperation in his last surviving son's voice, wired 3 lakh to his son's account immediately. But the perpetrators discovered the debit card had a daily withdrawal limit of just 25,000 rupees. The money they wanted was beyond reach. Frustrated and panicking about the possibility of police involvement, Kamra attempted to strangle Dushyant, then smother him with a pillow. Both attempts failed. Priya brought a fruit knife from the kitchen, and Kamra used it on Dushyant 10 to 11 times in the neck, ending his life. They placed his body in a purple trolley suitcase and left it on the Jaipur-Delhi highway. The body was found on May 4th, with efforts made to prevent identification. But his father, Rameshwar, recognized him by the sacred red threads tied around his wrist, a black amulet, and rings set with astrological gemstones that Dushyant always wore. A father identified his son by the smallest, most personal details. Police solved the case within 48 hours using call record analysis, tracing the ransom demand back to Priya's phone. All 3 were arrested shortly after. The trial took over 5 years as it moved through the Indian court system. On November 25, 2023, Sessions Judge Ajit Kumar Hinger found all 3 guilty and sentenced them to life imprisonment. In a remarkable twist that made national headlines, Priya Seth married another convicted individual while in prison. In January 2026, the Rajasthan High Court granted 15-day emergency parole for her to marry Hanuman Prasad, who had been convicted in Alwar in 2017 for taking 5 family members' lives. The wedding took place on January 24, 2026. Kamra and Walia are also serving life sentences. The case was later featured in the Penguin India book Swipe Right to Kill by Anirban Bhattacharya, which examined how dating apps had created new avenues for criminal exploitation across India. But while Dushyant was lured by a group of strangers, the final case on this list started with a single Tinder match, a glimpse of cash, and a tip that set a deadly chain of events in motion 4 months later. Luke Lembrick. In the early hours of December 7, 2019, 2 men climbed through a living room window of a townhouse in Condell Park, Western Sydney, Australia. The break-in lasted just 60 to 90 seconds. They confronted the man inside and demanded money. When he refused and tried to defend himself, he was struck 5 times, including once through the heart. His mother, who was terminally ill with bone cancer, heard thumping noises and came to investigate. She was struck repeatedly in the chest and thrown across the room. The intruders fled empty-handed. The woman found her son bent forward, covered in blood. His words to her, "I'm going to die, Mom. I'm going to die." Paramedics essentially performed open-heart surgery at the scene. But Luke Lembrick, 29, was pronounced gone. His fatal wound had pierced his heart. Luke was a plumber from Condell Park, known locally as a tradie. He was living with his mother, Robin Bradley, who had been battling bone cancer for approximately 10 years. His father was John Lembrick, and he had a sister named Shari. Described as larger than life and the center of the family, his funeral was attended by approximately 1,000 people. His nickname was Jubes. 5 people were involved in planning and carrying out the intrusion. Lisa Ann Price, approximately 35, had matched with Lembrick on Tinder in August 2019. She and another woman visited his unit, where they spent the evening together. During the night, Lembrick displayed stacks of large denomination notes estimated at $10,000 to $20,000 and a quantity of illicit substances. He was showing off, trying to impress. He subsequently stopped talking to Price and blocked her on the app. 4 months passed. Then Price, desperate for money and facing eviction from her home, tipped off Joseph Nemi about the cash she had seen in Lembrick's apartment. That single tip set everything in motion. Nemi, approximately 31, organized the break-in and entered the home armed with a blade taped to his body. Viliami Taufahema entered as additional force. Naima described Taufahema to others as "my mate, he's a machine." Bilal Rahim served as the getaway driver and lookout. Shireen Risk taped the blade to Naime's body hours before the intrusion and helped plan logistics. An intercepted phone call captured after the event revealed the casual indifference of the perpetrators. Naime was recorded telling Price, "Wasn't as straightforward as you said, huh? We thinned him. We got him." He spoke about ending a man's life the way someone might talk about a job that did not go as planned. The legal proceedings were extraordinarily complex, spanning multiple trials over several years. A first joint trial in February 2023 was aborted after a High Court of Australia decision changed the legal framework the prosecution's case rested upon. The Crown had to rebuild its approach from scratch in a second trial in late 2023. Taufahema was found guilty of the most serious charge, while Price and Rahim were found guilty of the lesser charge. In a separate third trial in April 2024, Naime was found guilty of the most serious charge. Sentences were handed down by Justice Sarah McNaughton in November 2024. Viliami Taufahema received 23 years with a non-parole period of 16 years and 6 months, making him eligible around 2036. Lisa Ann Price received 8 years with a non-parole period of 4 years and 6 months, making her eligible around 2028. Bilal Rahim received 8 years and 6 months with a non-parole period of 5 years and 2 months. Naime's sentencing was still pending as of late 2024 due to conflicting accounts about his conduct in custody. Luke's mother, Robin Bradley, spent her final 3 months mourning her son before she too passed from cancer. She never recovered from what she witnessed that night. His father told the court there is no adequate sentence that would right the wrong of his son's passing. His sister Shari spoke about the brother who was the center of their world, taken in 90 seconds by strangers who left with nothing. All of it started with a single Tinder match, a glimpse inside someone's home, and a decision made 4 months later to go back and take what was there. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.